Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of the Mr. Redder podcast. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen neighbor complained about my tree. Big mistake. After that, $600 to-go order, $0 tip. And after that, husband got sick of hearing my daughter play the piano, so he destroyed it. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to complain about her neighbor's tree. I'll find something to complain about. I always do. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen neighbor complained about my tree. Big mistake. One day I came home and my mom told me that the right side neighbor talked to her. Neighbor claimed that a city official came over while we weren't there, stopped by her house, and asked her to pass along a message. The tree on our side of the fence is too unruly, and a few branches are getting too close to the neighbor's house. The city will fine us if we don't cut down those branches. So the city was going to fine us without an official notice? I was certain that the neighbor either got the warning herself or was lying for some free gardening. It was our tree, so we would have done it if she had asked us properly. But my mom and I decided to just cut it down so it didn't become an issue again. She sent me over to let the neighbors know, and after some pleasantries, I told her of our decision. Her expression immediately darkened. The tree is in a perfect place to cover my bedroom window from the SoCal sun, and it gives me plenty of privacy. Wouldn't it be cheaper to trim it? Cue malicious compliance to the city warning. I told her with a concerned face that we were anxious about the city's fine, and that if we had to keep trimming it, it would be costly and a huge headache. At that point, some slight panic seeped into her voice, and she offered to pay for the trimming herself. In other words, we wouldn't have to do a thing, nor pay a single penny. A better man would have said yes, but by this point, I was a bitter man. I kept a concerned face, and I told her if I ever left, no plans to because of my mom's health, my mom would have to deal with it, and I wouldn't want her to have to keep checking in with the neighbors for fear of a fine. At the end of the day, our tree, our fine, our decision. I left shortly after. The tree came down that weekend, and so did the neighbor's blinds to her bedroom. A few years since then, and as of yet, I still haven't seen them go back up. And to think, if she had just asked nicely, we would still be trimming those branches at no cost to her. $600 to-go order, $0 tip. I'm a server, 22, female, at a Chinese restaurant, one of the best, if not the best, in town. Thursday afternoon, we had a man, let's call him Martin, call in to place a very large to-go order to be picked up Saturday, today. The cashier taking his order is the best at the restaurant, Cole. Cole just turned 18. Cole spends about 20 minutes on the phone with Martin, putting in his order. This man ordered an insane amount of food, all party trays. The bill was $599. It's only me and Cole at the restaurant today besides the chefs. The order starts coming out, and I'm helping Cole pack. We have 3 gigantic boxes to use to hold everything. 7 trays of General Tso's chicken, 7 broccoli and beefs, a massive order of white rice and fried rice, 100 steamed dumplings, and we threw in a free party platter of crab rangoons for them. We have the 2 massive boxes on a rolling cart and the 3rd sitting on the line counter. Martin literally rushes in full-on speed walking with his lifting accomplice. Pick up for Martin. Me and Cole go to the kitchen to bring out the food. Cole asks me to push the cart out with the receipt for them to sign. They paid over the phone, and he'll bring out the 3rd box. I go out with the cart, politely ask Martin to sign his receipt. He grabs a pen and very quickly marks a line through the tip amount. I'm thinking, okay, I know this man is not about to not leave a tip on a $600 order. Surely he'll tip, right? I mean, I know it's not a dine-in service, but still it is packaged food, a lot of preparation. Cole and the 2 chefs help these guys load everything into their minivan. At this point, I'm already deciding how I will bring up politely the $0 tip. I'm hoping he slips him cash. I'm behind the counter, watching this guy carefully through the window. He comes back inside, telling Cole he needs hot mustard. Dude starts shoveling handfuls of packets into a bag right at the counter. I slide his signed receipt across the counter directly in front of him and say, "You know, Cole is the one who took your order. He packaged everything." I point to the dashed out tip line. Martin: "I know." Me: "It's $600 worth of food." Martin: "I know." Starts getting irritated. In disbelief, I walk to the back hallway to breathe, trying to contain my anger. Cole was telling me before Martin showed up, Even if they tip me 10%, that's $60. $60. This kid works so hard, busts his butt every shift. Not even a minute later, I start walking up front and hear this man yelling. He's screaming at the two chefs, who barely speak English by the way. "That girl doesn't know what she's talking about. That jerk needs to shut her mouth." I'm standing there and he's looking at me, pointing, flailing his arms. "Well, now he gets no tip. I was going to tip him cash, but she just ruined it for him. Ridiculous." Martin proceeds to try and run out of the side door, goes for the wrong side and slams himself against the blinds instead, fumbles around and finally figures out how to stumble out, still yelling. I'm sorry, but never in all of my restaurant experience have I seen someone wait to tip cash so long after signing the check, especially on a catered order. Customers who tip do not wait, and at this restaurant, I've had the owner do the same for me at a table. He's followed customers out who have stiffed me even. Always had my back and made sure to stick up for me and other servers. I wanted to do the same for this kid, and what gets me the most is that I was so polite, and yet this man immediately started shouting at me. I feel kind of bad, but the dude was a jerk. Edit. I would like to add the tip would be 100% Cole's, as he is a cashier and gets to keep to-go tips. I'm a server who would never expect tips from to-go. I was just helping him, as I am the senior employee at this restaurant. Is tipping something most people do on to-go orders? Honestly asking. I was wondering the same thing. We have a restaurant like OP described near me, and I've never tipped for a to-go order. I've never seen others do it either. Sit-down dinner, absolutely. I've always been a good tipper. I've never heard until now that to-go staff are paid the same as wait staff, and I'd say the common customer wouldn't know that. As a customer, we have no reason to know that. So I'm just saying no tips on a to-go order for most, not all, maybe just an honest mistake. I do not believe I have ever tipped for any kind of pickup or to-go order. I suppose I never thought about it beyond me thinking to-go equals no waitress. Not gonna lie, I have never tipped on a takeout order in my life. Assuming you're in the US, that's not even close to being a norm here. The customer was a giant jerk. That being said, if you pointed to the tip line on my takeout receipt, I'd tell you to buzz off. Ask the manager/owner to add automatic gratuity on orders over X amount if this is an issue. I don't know. First of all, if someone is ordering that much food, they're probably stressed to the max about getting it all to its destination without it being cold or totally messed up. Also, I just ordered about $1,200 worth of lumber and the forklift driver loaded it all on my trailer and tied it down. They're not even allowed to get tips. I'm not sure why there's an exception to tip someone handing you bags of food at a to-go order. Do you tip people at the counter at McDonald's when you have a big order? Honest question, what's the difference? Well, what do? Do you leave a tip when you pick up your to-go order or not? Please let us know. Bruh. Husband got sick of hearing my daughter play the piano, so he destroyed it. My husband and I have been together for 2.5 years. I have a daughter, Callie. She's 13. She loves instrumental music and piano has been her #1 interest. I'm not saying this because she's my daughter, but really, I see her talent as special, and more importantly, she uses it to express her feelings, especially for her deceased father who passed away when she was 7. She always says that she, in a way, connects to him through playing piano. So I encouraged her to do more, and her grandparents bought her a $6,000 piano that she was so thrilled with. The whole family encourages her, but my husband thinks she's being distracted from school, her real future, etc. He doesn't attend her plays, doesn't help with the academy, doesn't even take the time to listen to her playing, and every time he comes home and hears her playing upstairs, he'd lecture us about how this activity is just a waste of time. I sat him down and told him about Callie picking up on that bad vibe. He just got mad and said that he was doing my job for me and ensuring she doesn't get distracted from school, although her grades are good. We went back and forth on this, and I made it clear that this needs to stop. He said okay, and that was the end of it. On Sunday, a huge argument ensued in the house because my husband claimed Callie woke him up on his day off with her loud playing. He issued an ultimatum. Either the piano goes, or he gets rid of it himself. I asked where should I take it. He said Callie's grandparents' house, but Callie didn't want to. After we left, I found out that my husband took it to the junkyard his dad works at and cut it into pieces. A big argument ensued, and we literally had a screaming match in front of his family over this. I gave him 2 days to pay me for a new one, despite him apologizing and saying he acted in a moment of desperation and frustration. He said the only way that he could pay for it is by using his savings that was supposed to go towards his new garage as a side business. He complained about me forcing him to pay and ruining his business before it even starts. He kept sending his family as middlemen to get me to give him at least 4 months, but I refused and stood my ground despite being called unreasonable since it's a piano versus a new business. Am I the jerk for forcing him to pay and not giving him time? Edit. No, he didn't have an issue with whatever Callie was doing at first until we started living together. At first, I thought that as a family, we tend to get annoyed by stuff other family members do, but apparently this is not the case. By the way, tonight or tomorrow morning is the timeline I've given him, and so far I haven't heard from him or his dad. You need to leave this relationship. Sue him for the cost of the piano and divorce him for being a complete jerk. Not the jerk. Give him a simple choice. His business is delayed while he takes accountability for his actions, or his business is ruined by having theft charges brought against him. Edit. And you're the jerk for allowing your husband to treat her so poorly for so long. Edit 2. The reason the family is yelling at you is because in most jurisdictions, the father could also be charged for receiving stolen property. Am I the jerk for calling my brother a horrible dad and a crappy husband? I, 16 male, have an older brother who's 26, who recently had his first son a month ago. His wife, who's 26, never wanted a kid, but my brother convinced her to have one. This week was the first time I visited since the baby was born, since we live states away. The place was pretty dirty, but I shrugged it off, thinking they're new parents and have their hands full. Then I see his wife, who looked as if she hadn't showered since the delivery, slept in a week, or anything except take care of the baby. Compared to my brother, who was clean, well-kept, and rested, she was a train wreck. While we were there for 4 hours, I really saw how much he contributed. Every time the baby would cry, my brother would hand him off to my mom or his wife. He ran out of the nursery, yelling for someone else to change the baby's diaper, and turns out it was barely even messy. Other examples of his negligence include insisting we leave the baby home alone while we went out for dinner, refusing to bathe him, and yelling at him to just go to sleep. My parents had seen enough in person and set everyone down, me included. We told him he needs to grow up and help out, but he just kept making excuses like how tired he is from work. For the record, he works 6 to 7 hours a day, Monday through Friday, sometimes a half day on Saturdays. His logic was that because he works, he can avoid his duties as a father. He's not the breadwinner, by the way. The mother works as well, willingly at home. He eventually was mad that we wanted him to be a dad, and he just said, "I'm a man. I don't take care of him, other than sports and teaching him to be a man." I snapped and started yelling how he's a horrible dad and ignoring his kid that he pressured his wife to have. I called him a lousy dad and how sad it is that he makes everyone else do his duties for him. I called him a deadbeat, adding how he shouldn't have had a kid if he didn't want to help out. I said I was sorry his wife married him because he was such a bad husband and how much better she can do, and added how I wouldn't be surprised if they were divorced by the time he was 30. Everyone was silent. My parents told me to wait outside, then later told me to apologize because it was rude and unnecessary. I refused to, but I heard him crying. I don't know if I took it too far, but I think he needs a reality check so that kid grows up with him present. We tried over the phone before and only were being nice, but that didn't work. I need to know, Reddit. Am I the jerk? Edit. Hello, lots of comments and messages asking if sister-in-law is okay. Thank you for your concern. It makes me think humanity isn't doomed yet. She's okay. She got the rest she needed while we were there and cleaned herself up. She said that she would probably start making my brother do baby things so she could take care of herself. Wow, I can barely begin to dissect this whole situation. Your brother pressures his wife to have a baby but does absolutely nothing to help. He works regular hours and she's a full-time mom plus work from home, but he's too tired to give her any help, so the house is a mess and she's exhausted and doesn't even have time to take a shower. He won't take care of the baby at all? He even wants to leave it home alone? I hope no one agreed with that. Good on you for calling out your brother. Too bad your parents thought you were rude. Most posters here frown on so-called rude awakenings or telling it like it is, or being brutally honest. Because to be honest, people just use those as excuses to be harsh and mean. But in this case, it was appropriate and necessary. Your brother needed a swift kick, not the jerk. And your parents are borderline jerks for letting their 16-year-old say what they should have said. That poor little kid. What is your brother teaching anyone about being a man, and how does he expect his lessons to turn out? His 16-year-old brother is a better man than he is and had to teach an adult about being a husband and father. I hope you can be part of your nephew's life, even from a distance, because you are going to be the positive male figure for him. Not the jerk. If facts hurt, then maybe he needs to change his behavior. Your parents are completely out of line to ask you to apologize, and he needs to cry. Imagine how much his poor wife has been feeling like crying. She's grown and delivered a human being, and the person who is supposed to be her adult partner has taken a mental trip to 1949. Way to be a good brother-in-law. Get yourself a treat. You have to take this paper. This is my dad's story and involves my brother, who I will call John Smith for anonymity. One day an officer shows up and knocks on the door. My dad answers and the officer says, "Hello, is this the residence of John Smith?" My dad says yes it is. The officer asks my dad if he was home, to which my dad says no he's not. Since my brother was still a youth, the officer asks my dad if he was a legal guardian of my brother, to which he says yes. The officer hands him a paper and it was a summons to appear in court for some charges against him and says John Smith needs to be in court on this date. My dad tries to hand the paper back and says, "It wasn't him, you have the wrong guy," to which officer cuts him off and says, "No, I do not, and he needs to be in court that day." Again, my dad says, "John Smith did not do this and you have the wrong guy," and tries to hand back the papers again. What I need to add is my brother was a troubled youth who had countless run-ins with the law, so every cop in town knew him and had arrested him dozens of times. So this officer was quite happy to serve my brother one more time. He even knew exactly where my brother lived without even looking at the address on the paper. After my dad said for the last time, "You have the wrong guy," the officer got nasty and said in a crappy tone of voice, "No, I do not have the wrong guy, and he has to show up for court. If he doesn't, he will be in trouble." This upset my dad since the officer was being so rude. So my dad says to him, "Okay, so this is my piece of paper then, and I can do with it what I want?" And the officer said, "Yes, it is." So my dad ripped it into a bunch of pieces and threw it into the dirt. The officer then laughs and says, "It doesn't matter, he still needs to be in court," to which my dad begins to laugh loudly in his face. The officer, not understanding why, had a blank stare on his face. My dad then asks, "Hey, what was the address on your paperwork?" To which the officer starts looking at the copy of the paperwork he was still holding, and my dad watched as a confused look came over his face. "This isn't even the address you had on the paper, and I was trying to tell you that, but you were being so rude and cutting me off every time. Now look at the full name. Do you not notice anything? It says John Rip Smith, and my son's name is John Pletty Smith. Again, you have the wrong guy. Now take your piece of paper and buzz off." The officer was shocked. "You ripped my paperwork. That was an official copy. Blah, blah, blah." My dad again laughs at him. No. You said that was my paperwork. Now kindly take your garbage and get off my property." Am I the jerk for insisting my sister-in-law not call herself Mom when talking to her biological daughter? So my wife and I adopted our niece this year. She's been in our custody for nearly a year and a half full-time and off and on for the previous 2 years. She just turned 13. My daughter has lived with her biological paternal grandmother since she was about 2 years old. In that time, she had no father figure, and her grandma refused to let her see her as a mother figure. My daughter was desperate for parental figures. When she first came to stay with us, long-term, back in 2019, she asked, "Can I call you Dad and Mom?" at just 9 years old. We let her, but she would call her biological mom Bio Mom, and her bio dad just by his first name. She had no real relationship with either of them. They spent time in prison, and even when they were not in prison, they mostly ignored her. When we got custody, my sister-in-law came out of the woodwork. I think she was hopeful that if we could get custody away from Grandma, then she could get custody from us. The problem is, she's still a junkie, and she still has a long unresolved criminal record, no permanent address, etc. We got custody easy from Grandma, and then we asked for adoption per daughter's request. Our lawyer gave sister-in-law 2 options: sign over parental rights or prove in court that you should continue to have them despite your daughter's desire to be adopted. As part of the agreement, we set up for my sister-in-law to call daughter regularly. She usually calls Sundays for a while, first talking to my wife for 30 minutes to an hour, then asking for my daughter. She spends 90% of that call talking about herself and often doesn't even ask our daughter how she's doing. The problem comes in that sister-in-law refers to herself as mom, her husband of barely a year as stepdad, his estranged kids my daughter has never even met as her step-siblings, and my wife and I as aunt and uncle. But the adoption has happened. By every meaningful way, I am dad, my wife is mom, and bio-mom is now aunt at best, and her husband is just that, her husband. His kids are of no relation at all. I've asked her multiple times to stop using these terms and to use the correct ones. It annoys my daughter and is usually the catalyst of her just walking away from the call. She's tried to correct my sister-in-law, but she refuses to change her ways. So now I just hang up. My daughter rarely actually wants to talk to her and will often just leave the room mid-conversation. When she does, I just end the call or let my wife pick up. My wife thinks I'm being too harsh, but I have no patience for this person, her boundary stomping, and neither does my daughter. My wife thinks I'm the jerk for not reminding sister-in-law every time and giving her a warning. I say she's had enough warnings. Edit. I get a lot of the same comments. 1. We cannot just cut all contact. We have a PACA where we have to give the opportunity for communication. We can reduce it to letter writing, but we would have to submit evidence of mistreatment, and my sister-in-law passes off her flubs as just slips of the tongue. Not sure how that would hold up. 2. My daughter has the idea of a fairy tale mom who magically shows up and is perfect, but her biological mom is nothing like this. 3. My daughter has expressed her discomfort with her biological mom's use of words, but struggles to express those in the moment. We're working on it. 4. Yes, we see a counselor. Not the jerk. Your daughter's not okay with it. You're not the jerk at all. OP. That's what gets me. It makes her mad. Talked with her just to make sure I understood her on Saturday, and she was like, "What does she not get? I'm adopted now, and you are dad and mom. How is this so hard? Ugh." Say that in your best preteen voice with at least 2 eye rolls. You're not the jerk, but ask your daughter what she wants you to do about it. If anything, before you take further action. She may want you to support her in telling her biological mother to cut it out, and in that case, go ahead. She may want to do it herself, in which case your role is to step back and let her, while making sure she knows she can always call you in if there's anything she wants a hand with. Or she may just want to stop talking to her, in which case that should be her decision too, unless you've got a legal visitation agreement that requires it. Am I the jerk for telling a bride it was not that difficult for people to upstage her at her wedding? My family and I are from Albania, but we live in the US. My cousin David got married to his wife Lizzie this weekend. In Albania, we always go all out for weddings, and David wanted to keep many cultural traditions. Lizzie didn't like the idea. Lizzie had sent out the invites via mail and also had some rules written down, as in no kids allowed, black tie dress code, absolutely no +1s unless both bride and groom approve of the +1. I am engaged, and I thought my fiance would be included, but David said Lizzie is against +1. I said that even if Lizzie is against it, my fiance has been in the family for years, way longer than Lizzie has been around, plus he's a friend of David as well, so he would come as a friend. David was frustrated and said Lizzie has set down most of these rules, and whenever he goes against her, she gets mad, so we should cut him some slack and just bear with it for his sake. I thought it was ridiculous how he didn't stand up for himself, but not my business after all. All of my Albanian side side-eyed the fact that the wedding was kid-free because we're used to involving kids at the weddings. The bride and her family refused to make any compromises about it and show respect to David and his wishes. But again, none of our business despite our frustration. Despite the black tie dress code, most of the bride's family turned up in jeans and flannel shirts, and the women just wore casual maxi dresses. Our side of the family dressed more formal. The bride just wore a white knee-length lace dress from H&M. The reception took place in a cabin by the lake, which had animal head trophies hanged on the walls. The only music we heard was some slow pop songs and then country music. Every time the DJ tried to play some traditional Balkan music, the bride's family would get him to change it. The bride also made a big deal out of the fact that we were dressed formal and how we overdid it. We upstaged her. She kept complaining about it all night long and was throwing tantrums to David about how we as his family are very disrespectful. After constant insults thrown around all night long, I told her to chill out. She said she won't chill out because we disrespected her. I told her, first of all, if she was so scared she was going to be upstaged, she shouldn't request black tie dress code. And secondly, to be honest, it was not that hard to upstage her because I've seen grandma dresses fancier than the one she's wearing. So she's the underdressed one for her own wedding, which was supposed to be a black tie event. David's entire family sided with me, but David said I'm the jerk for speaking to his bride like that on her wedding day. I told him that if the bride requires kindness, she should start with herself. Am I the jerk? Your wording could possibly score you some jerk points, but the bride has very much upstaged you in the jerk department. She sounds horrible, and David needs to grow a backbone if he doesn't want his life dictated to him. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You're a jerk for being judgmental? No, this is a fair moment to be judged for how you treat your extended family and your husband's culture. Heck, this is a good moment to judge your cousin and reevaluate your respect for him. It is their wedding, and they are completely entitled to do what they want for their wedding. However, if they want black tie plus jeans, then they should specify it. I don't have keys for a store I don't work at. My workplace is a small boutique-style pet food / self-wash / grooming salon. I'm the groomer. I show up at 8 for early morning appointments, and we open at 10. Next door is a General Dollar, and the management must be the worst because they're constantly having issues keeping staff and staying open. When this story took place last year, the manager wasn't showing up on time, and when I'd come to unlock my shop, I'd see the Dollar General workers waiting outside, especially in the snow, and I started a good rapport with them as I'd let them come into my store and warm up if they needed to while waiting for their perpetually late manager. One morning, I showed up to more than the usual number of people milling around the parking lot. I generally get to work at 7:45, so seeing anyone other than Dollar General workers is unusual. As I was grabbing some equipment from my car, a man said to me, "Oh, they've been waiting for you." This was surprising to me, but not unheard of. Sometimes my early grooming appointments are super early because of work or school drop-offs, which is why I take appointments at the time in the first place. As if to punctuate this idea, I saw a regular and 2 of his dogs wandering around a grassy area taking care of business. I greeted my clients, exchanged a typical southern greeting, "Hey girl, how you doing?" "Oh, it's doing. You keeping warm?" "I'm trying. Have a good day. You too." With the Dollar General workers, I knew by sight and opened the shop. A few hours later, the owner, my boss, walked into the grooming room with her "I hate people" look on her face. "I got a complaint about you, antisocial." My blood ran cold. "Me? What? Why?" She shook her head a few times, laughing. "You didn't unlock the Dollar General this morning when you unlocked our door." I attempted to reconcile this idea with reality. I failed spectacularly. "Huh? This guy called to complain about you. You unlocked our door, but didn't even try to unlock the next door." I stared at my boss, fish-mouthing until the dog I was grooming tried to stick his head inside it. That was when my brain caught up with what was happening. Yeah, I didn't unlock the Chinese restaurant on the other side of us either. I guess I'm just slacking today. My boss went on to tell me that she pointed out to the gentleman that I do not work at the General of Dollars and that my key wouldn't fit the lock. Apparently, the gentleman firmly believed that I should have tried. My boss advised him to call Dollar General to complain, and this was where she lost it and started cracking up. And his response was to say that I worked at the pet shop, not Dollar General, so he was calling her. She said, "Well, I don't know what you think I can do, sir," and hung up. My Karen sister allowed her son to give my dog dreadlocks. My sister is a single mom with one son who's 14, and they've been staying at my place for the last few because they lost their apartment and she's saving up money to get them a new apartment. She, however, has driven me crazy lately. She's up late at night on her phone or watching TV. I go to work at 3:30 a.m., so I've been getting less sleep. Her son constantly bothers my daughter. She has brought men over from the bars, etc. She doesn't do chores, they make messes, and I've addressed these issues so many times, and I just get ignored. The final straw came when I came home from work last night, and I saw that my dog had dreadlocks. Not a lot, but like maybe 8 or so. What the heck? I'm not sure if that's alright. He sure didn't seem comfortable and was pawing at them. I'm worried because I've heard horror stories about people who didn't wash properly and nasty stuff grew inside of their dreadlocks. I asked him about it, and he said he thought it would look cool and he's not finished yet. I was so upset when I saw that, and later I found out that he posted it on TikTok. That was the final straw. I told my sister she had to leave. She, of course, pulled the whole "but we're family" card, saying how she's a struggling mom and how it's just a dog and it's not a big deal. I told her I'm sick of this. He knew better, and quite honestly, I'm tired of living with them. She, of course, called my parents, who sided with me, thankfully, but our siblings and cousins took her side, who bombarded me with texts and calls telling me that I need to take them back in. She eventually moved in with my brother. Anyways, I'm wondering if I did the wrong thing here. I feel bad because they're struggling, but giving my dog dreadlocks was just crossing the line. Cardio Karen and the Grand Hospital Tour. About 5 years ago, my girlfriend was in the ICU of one of our largest hospitals in Sydney, Australia. Needless to say, it was a stressful time for me, but she's all good now. This story occurred as I was walking back from one of the hospital's cafes to see my girlfriend. I was stopped in the corridor by an older lady, maybe early 60s, wide as she was tall, who asked me to take her to the cardio ward. Her tone was very polite, and I told her I don't work there, but directed her to reception. Her ladyship did not like this response. "Don't mess around. I know you work here. Take me there." Her sudden change in demeanor stunned me. "Come along. I don't have all day," she huffed. At this point, I should mention I was wearing a full suit and tie combo, as I had an unavoidable meeting later that day. Now, I like a navy suit as much as the next suave bloke, but the doctors in this hospital, when not in scrubs, mostly wore slacks and a collared shirt. Given the missus was a bit under the weather, I was sleep-deprived, anxious, and had no patience for her ladyship being a jerk. "Okay, follow me." We started down the corridor, through some doors, and up a flight of stairs, her pacing grumpily behind me. I could see a sign ahead, "Cardio ward to the right." So, unfortunately for her ladyship, left we went. We went up lifts, down lifts, upstairs and down again. A full 10 minutes into our Royal Prince Alfred Hospital tour, it must have occurred to her that I had no idea where I was going. A porter with a gurney stepped out of the side door and she immediately accosted him. "Your staff member here is wasting my time." It was almost comedic the way he looked down at her, up at me, down at her, then up to me. "Did you tell this lady you work here?" "No, mate. Literally the opposite." I smiled at the porter. The porter frowned. "Where you headed, love?" By now, she was quite exasperated. "What is wrong with you people? He should have taken me to the cardio ward, and don't love me." The porter, trying to hide his smile, told her to follow him, and off they went. I overheard her grumble something about staff complaint as they waddled away. Gosh only knows what my write-up would have said about me. I hurried back to the ICU ward, happily armed with a humorous story to cheer up my girlfriend. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.